Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim, and our guest today is Antoine. So, Antoine, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do for a living.
Sure. My name is Antoine Bonnin. I live in Bethesda, Maryland, next to Washington, D.C. Moved there about 2 years ago. Used to be in California before that. And right now I'm the VP of Brand Design and Ecom Tech at GameStop, actually.
In terms of your career, how did you get started, doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, so I got lucky because after high school, I was not the best student. So I could not get into the great French school that some of my friends went to. But, in France, we have like free university, or you can go to college, which is very cheap. It's like $200 a year. And college at least teaches you actual skills. And one program that was opening when I went to university was about technology and art and everything around new media, which I had no idea. Like I had a computer, but that was like just to play with. We might use an Atari at some point, but that was about it. So I signed up for it, got in, and it was the best decision I made. So I've learned everything from Java to electronics to Flash at the time, or Photoshop, photography, actual photography. So it was a long program, you would go there at 8, finish at 6, but half was theory, half was practice. And that's what I really liked, was the practice part. And that's where you learn your strength, My math was not the best, but my Photoshop skills were very good. My communication skills were pretty good. So, I did that for 2 years. I did a third year. And one cool thing about that program, they force you to do an internship. And you can do an internship either in France or anywhere you want. Luckily for me, I had a friend who had family in Canada, in London, Ontario, so English speaking. And he's like, let's go spend 3-4 months in Canada. You can improve your English, which was terrible. Believe me, it was way worse than this. So I went there the first year to do my internship. Loved it. I got to create websites for people, and people actually paid us for it. It was amazing. Like I found something that could be useful for. So went back to France, finished my third year in Paris just to specialize a little bit more, and kept contact, did some freelance for them at the time, and just went back to Canada. And that's how I got my first job. I just worked for that same company for 5 years. And that's where I learned my craft. It was we had 3 different startups at that company, so I did a lot of different things. That's why I learned to code more. So I learned to design more, dealing with clients, dealing with lots of different things, growing team, inspiring people. So I learned a lot there. And at that point, that was my life, right? That's what I did all day: design, and code, and design, and code, and design. And it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. So that's how I started.
So, what made you want to come to the U.S.? I mean, you grew up in France, but obviously France has lots of opportunities as well.
So yes and no. So France, and I love I was born and raised there. All my family is there, friends too, and it's a great country. People are very kind and very nice. But when it comes to work, it's not about meritocracy as much as it is in the US. So I didn't do the fancy school, in the US. So we were in Canada for 5 years, met my wife, moved to England for 1 year to get closer to France. I got to work for National Geographic for a few big names like this. It was fun. Like I actually won an award for that, which I didn't know. So it was fun to see that, I used to work for this small agency, went to the big city in London, England, and actually my skills really ported, and I actually got paid for it a lot more. But then England was nice, but not for us, I suppose, at least London. And after that, where should we go? And for me, I always wanted to see what the Silicon Valley was like. So I sent my resume to like 5 different companies. I think at the time, dig.com was the thing when it came to social media. So I sent my resume there. Everybody wanted to interview me. So we just took the plane and moved there. That's when I learned about visas. So they all wanted to hire me, but apparently you needed this thing called visa in the US to be able to work. French guy didn't know nothing. Because I didn't need a visa in England. I didn't realize that, even though in Canada I did have a visa. So somehow I was able to get a visa fairly quickly. So I was an intern for a little bit, working for this cool startup. That's where I met a lot of very interesting people. Like one thing about the Silicon Valley, I don't know about today, although I was there not that long ago, there's still a lot of smart people who want to create things, Silicon Valley's got its own issues like anywhere else, but for me, that's where you meet very, very interesting people. That's where I met a lot of people I still talk today. So for me, that was a great experience. And after that, it was hard to leave the Silicon Valley because I met those people. I met the guy. I worked with a guy who Jack Dorsey used to work for him, and he was the first investor in Twitter. And I got to learn about Bitcoin in 2010. I made a Bitcoin wallet in 2014, like things I could never have done if I stayed in France, right? Because I would not meet those people. And for me, I love the American mentality when it comes to work, like if you work hard, you'll get somewhere. But yeah, you have to work hard. It's true in most countries, France too, like people work hard in France too. It's just you won't get to success as fast, or at least not as big of a scale, And for me, that's something you want to see as much as you can.
I mean, that's an interesting point. I think that's true in lots of countries. It's all about where you went to school or what you studied. In America, it's more about what is your output? What are you actually
Yeah,
contributing in terms of value? And that's a really
exactly.
good point.
Yeah, and frankly, that's how. I mean, when I interviewed there, they always thought I was too sure of myself. Let's just say, and I didn't know, but like I've done it before. So for me, it was just, yeah, of course I can do this in a week. Why would that take more than a week? And that was confusing for them because it should take a month to do, I don't know, rebrand somebody. It's like anything else, depends on the quality you want, right? You can do something in an hour, doesn't mean it's going to be good, but doesn't mean you need a month to do something. Sometimes good solutions can be done quickly and move on to the next thing. The 80-20% rule is my favorite rule. That's what I stand by for everything. Like do 80% of it, you'll see. You'll be happy with the results. So I apply that for everything since I've been working currently.
Great. So, what's the role of technology in your job? I believe everything is around the technology, but what are you using and how is it playing a good positive role?
I got lucky that, yes, it's a lot around technology, but like a lot around design for me, right? Like all my jobs were around design, and tech just applies to it. And I mean, the quality is just put the time in it. The more time you put into it, the more quality you're gonna get. And I was one of those people who didn't think I was good enough, so just spend the extra time to put more work into it, right? And frankly, it's not fair. Like if you have a family, it's much harder to put time into it, right? You have to take your kids and everything like this, but then you do it after the kid go to bed. And yes, it's more work for you, but in the long term, you're going to create better. I know I'm very, maybe it's a French thing, but it's never good enough, right? So like quality is everything. Like not to the pixel perfect thing. I think that's also a mistake some designers make,
Mhm.
right? But
Mhm.
the solution can always be better. So when someone tells me like, I don't know if that can be improved, I already know you haven't looked into it because everything can be better. Even Apple products can be better. And I love Apple, great designs, right? And the same people who came up with the Mighty Mouse that you cannot charge. So everything can be improved. Sorry, does that answer your question? Or?
How it playing a role in your daily routine or in your
All day
job?
today? Yeah, so it varies greatly. For me, what I like to do, and I used to own a big team, like I used to work at Chewy, right? So I was 2015, so I got to brand Chewy, I got to do most of the things early on, and then I got to grow a team of like 40, 50 people at the end. So I've seen what it's like, and what I've learned that I'm good at or like to do is to show by example. Like I like to get my hands dirty. I like to delegate as well when I can. What I've learned when you build too big of a team, things slow down a lot. So I think any startup or any bigger company needs to start to learn to run their teams like startups. Like get them to own a lot, because when people own a lot, they're a lot more accountable and it's more rewarding for them. When you get to that scale where you get too big, where nobody owns really anything, then the quality goes down because nobody owns it, right? You start to own a little piece, you won't care as much because you own a little piece, and frankly, your impact is a lot lower. Therefore, your care is going to go lower as well. Just human nature. That's where we are. So, and I've seen that in many jobs. That's one thing I miss about startups. Startups don't have a choice. You have to raise money for the next round of funding, and you cannot waste money because you don't have the money to waste. But that's the way it should be at big companies. The reason why they laid off so many people for the past year in the big tech companies, and I've seen it, is people they hire too many people. Just because you have the cash doesn't mean you should hire. They hire because you need it. And I've interviewed in some of those big companies, and some of the job they would offer was not a job as far as I was concerned. It was just the title, really well-paid title, but life is too short to do that. So for me, I think the shift right now happening in the industry, at least I hope there is, and I think there's a healthy shift. I think it's going to help people feel better about what they do day to day. So for me, day to day is just get my hands dirty, help the team when I can, try to remove obstacles as much as I can, talk to leadership as much as I can to give our perspective, and just it's almost like a diplomatic kind of role, like if you know what teams need, you have to find a way to communicate to execs that they can hear you. Like people will listen, but they won't hear you. So finding a way to be heard is the hardest thing, I think, for manager or leader. And again, I think showing by example is the best thing. If they see you do some of their work, they respect you a lot more. I'm the same way. I think it's a lot easier to report to
Yeah.
somebody that, no, like it's just easier. Like if you see them do the day-to-day work and they're good at it, it's easier to follow them, right? If they just give order, but you don't know what are they good at, and actually the order they give you is wrong, are you going to follow those people? No. But if you went to battle with those people and tell you to follow, go this way, even though you don't agree, you're going to go because you trust that person. So trust is in any team. I don't know if you play sports. I played sport as I was a kid or teenager as well, and that's one thing you learn when you play sport, especially team sport, is you have to rely on your colleagues, and sometimes they might not have a good day, so you're there to motivate them, show them by example that you can do it, and then it gets the whole team going. I used to love that. That was the best. That was the best way to learn things. How to lose, how to win.
Yeah.
It's very useful when you get into the job market, frankly.
Cool. So you are an early adopter, or you are change resistant? Like, do you adapt the new things early? Are you resist to adopt them?
No, I'm a when it comes to AI, I was using Midjourney like last year. I mean, yeah, last year when it was still like a weird tool, and then I think it was December, January, and just overnight the next version was just beautiful. So now I'm a techie nerd by trade, maybe. I just like to test things and play with things no matter what, especially nowadays. Like in the early 2000, it was a lot harder to learn things. I used to use IRC. I don't know if you ever used that forum. It was like the Reddit before Reddit was a thing where like only specialists were on those servers, and you could ask very, very deep questions. You just had to be there for a few weeks before they trust you. But that's how I learned a lot of things as well. Like it was the early Reddit. I think Reddit now is not what it used to be, so it's harder to learn things. But I think nowadays it's so easy to learn. I mean, go to YouTube, you can learn anything. It's actually quite insane how much you can learn. So for me, I wish I was 20 years younger, because I would do it again, all over again. But like, I had some projects we were using React, and I've learned Java a long time ago and suck at it. And so I just use AI to like teach me some of it. And now I was pushing code like a month ago to some React stuff we do. So like nowadays, if you really want to, doesn't mean I'm a specialist at it, I'm not far from it, but you can learn. And for me, even as a designer, you should learn the technology just to be able to have those conversations with the engineers. Like that's why I like having engineers as part of my team, because they are, at the end of the day, what the user is going to use is what they coded. I can design whatever I want. That's not the user experience. The user experience is what is coded, right? So I always tell engineers, you are, you UX engineers as far as I'm concerned. And so your work matters a lot, and that's why we pay attention to details and QA things a lot. But that's why I want designers to talk to people and learn those technology. Like it's not that hard. Like just to play with it. Like create an app over a weekend. I did it. I was able to do it with AI. So it's really, the more you never know as much as what you don't know, right? That's just life. So like we're lucky today to have all those interesting tech that we can play with. Try it out. Doesn't mean you're gonna like it, but try it out. That's what I would say to anyone. But again, that's why I learned in college. The best lesson I ever had from a teacher was the first class of, what was it, Windows NT, I think. We were doing networking classes, and he gave us a list of what to do for like 4 hour, like it was a 4 hour like actual work, and he gave us a list of what to do, and I was stuck on the first thing. Like, I don't want to ask. So I asked. He's like, okay, so press F1. At the time F1 is help, and type it in there, and he was right. You can look up anything. That was, 1998 or 99. That lesson is still true today. You can Google anything. Now you can ask AI anything. So for me, if you have access to those tech, if you're lucky enough to have access to those tech, you have no excuse not to do anything. It's a matter of will, right? And fair enough, we don't have the same, we're not giving the same cards, but like, if you're willing, you can do it. And I've seen it done by many, many people.
Definitely. So in terms of technology, obviously, you're an early adopter AI. Where specifically do you think technology, can help your business even now or just in general? Like we're in like, because you're, just forward looking.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is going to be, if you want to, you can create a marketplace like this nowadays. Like Shopify for me is an amazing tool you can redo. No, but like it's so much easier than it used to be. You used to have to do it yourself. No, you don't. Even Squarespace is amazing. So, so when it comes to those things, it's so much easier. Sorry, your question was more specific.
Yeah. So yeah, just in
Where it's
terms of
going.
like, in terms of
Yeah,
like what you're doing now, like where do you like what specifically technologically, whether it's AI, whether
yeah.
it's
So for me, yeah.
like
So
in Web
yeah.
three, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, Web3, again, being a blockchain guy, I see that as a future of like, I think gaming is a very specific use case that makes sense. You see Ubisoft, you see Microsoft, you see all of them developing Web3 games. They just don't talk about it because in the gaming culture, there's something wrong about NFTs. I think it's a misunderstanding of what NFTs are because, for some reason, it was pictures of monkeys that did well at first, or apes, whatever. Right? So people have this misunderstanding of what NFTs are. What NFTs are, or blockchain is going to allow you is, hey, I've got a game today, I download it. What do you do with it? Nothing. You're stuck with it. Now you'll be able to rent it to somebody. You'll be able to sell it to somebody, right? And that's just one aspect of it. So for me, that's the future when you can tokenize everything. You can rent and sell everything, at least digital assets, which today you cannot. That's why GameStop is here. Because physical is still very good. And then when it comes to AI, I think AI is only at the beginning. It's going to get very, very interesting. I think as a creative, it's allowing me to do things that we need a team to do before. Right, that's nice. Like I can create things I would need a photographer, right, and a team, and book them, and that takes time. You need to, okay, I need the 5:30 in the morning to get the right light and all those things. No, I just type a prompt. It takes time to find the right prompt, but when you get it, it's amazing, and I can get as many photo shoot as models as I want. It's crazy, actually. And I think customer service is the next one as well. I think when it comes to customer service, AI is going to be. I'm surprised it's not more used yet. I think it's just starting, that's why. But it just makes sense. Why am I waiting to talk to anyone if a robot will know more than anyone, right? It will absorb all the data more data than a human could absorb. So of course it's going to be better than us at that stuff. And I think that's a plus. It's going to open other issues when it comes to economy and things like this. But like any change in tech, people used to paint to make portrait, and then somebody came up with the photography, right? I'm sure at the time people freaked out, at least when it came to if you were a painter, I'm sure you're not happy with that. But we still have the paintings and we still have photography, and photography became this thing that evolved tremendously over the years, right? So AI is going to be the same thing. So at first, it's going to be the people who know how to use AI, and eventually you won't need those people because AI will be smart enough to tell us how to do things anyway. So it's going to be very interesting how things shift, where in healthcare, I can see that being used a lot. I've got a cousin, he's a surgeon, he's making a robot to fix your knee, to do surgery on your knee, right? Even he says, he's one of the best. And he says, no, the robot is better than me and never makes a mistake, And I'm like, that makes sense, actually, So it's exciting. It's frightening to a lot of people, like anything new. And I think we don't have a choice but to embrace it. So it's better to embrace it and look at what the issue could be, so you can plan ahead. And we need politicians to get into that as well, because abuse will happen for sure. You see it with deepfake and other things, but that's always been the case, right? So for me, it's not the technology; it's how you use the technology.
In terms of, yeah, I was just curious. So specifically, more in terms of gaming, right? So, do you see AI as a use case either? Obviously, product recommendation, 100%.
That's a given. Yeah.
But do you see some AI for what if people want to create their own games? Like they have this concept in their mind.
Oh, it's already happening. I've seen people, one guy's using Midjourney to create a beautiful background, bring that, I forget which tool allows you to make it a full 360 3D world, and then went into modeling using Unity. And Unity got a lot easier to use. Even Unreal Engine got a lot easier to use. And you have new startups, you can prompt 3D assets. And I work with some great 3D artists, and they're a bit frightened by it because, oh no, that's my job. I'm like, no, your job's going to be to use those assets now. I'll come up with better ideas, like being human, is to be creative, right? So no, in gaming, it's happening already. We just don't talk about it, but I've seen startups literally doing that. And when it comes to your avatar, I should be able to take my avatar anywhere. Like that famous movie from Steven Spielberg, right? That's where we're going towards, and that makes sense to me. That's the way it should be, hopefully that's not the same world, because that world was kind of freaky. I'm hoping it's more a mix of that and Star Trek. I think Star Trek is where things should be, where I get to own my data, for example. I used to work for a startup that was self-sovereign identity, which is exactly that, using blockchain. So you control your data instead of company controlling your data. I think that's the future. That's a tough sell to companies, but actually if they think long-term, it removes liability from companies, so you don't have to store data. It's that alone. If you ask any chief compliance officer, they like that. When it comes to video game, yeah, it's only the beginning. I mean, I see more and more independent video game maker, like, you know, guys who work for big video game companies who get tired, frankly, because it's a tough job, and realize like, hold on, I could do that myself and have my own game and sell it. I might not sell it for millions of dollars, but enough to make a living. And I think the younger generation lacks those games as well, from what I see on Steam. And I think that's a great development. I think some of the best games are independent games, and you're going to see more of that. And I think you're going to see big IPs working with those people because they're so popular. So I think for that, you're going to see an explosion in number of games coming out, actually, more and more because of AI.
Exciting.
Yeah.
So what would you say are your top business priorities in the next 3 to 6 months?
I mean, right now, being in retail, it's really about getting ready for like what we call peak, right? Thanksgiving to Christmas, and making sure the site doesn't go down, and we support our stores as much as we can. But that's every retailer will tell you the same thing. It's like you just can't screw up during those holidays. For me, it's also like looking at 2024 as well. Like, what should it be? And I already know what it should be, so that's coming then. So it's the next 6 months gonna be good, actually. Lots of updates coming up, which I think people will like. And so that's the main thing right now. It's different working for the company I'm working for right now. GameStop, being a public company, is very different as well. So you have to be more careful and things like this. But it's been good. It's only getting better as well. So it's very interesting, and it's a different experience than every other company I work for. You know, I worked for a startup that became public. That was very interesting to go from one to the other. Going into a public company is a very different type of environment, let's just say. But it's people are motivated, excited about the brand. So for me, that's where it starts.
So what is the one biggest piece of advice you wish you knew before you started your career?
Everything will be fine. Don't stress out as much as you do about delivering everything. I did stress too much about things that didn't matter at the end, you know. So for me, like, take a step back, relax a bit more, and I mean, I always enjoy my job, at least. So I got lucky for that because I'm able to express myself through technology, right? So for me, that was a big thing. So I got lucky that I'm doing a job I actually enjoy. So if you can do that, great. If you don't enjoy your job, still do it as well as you can. Like, I used to have like bad summer job, but I still tried to do it as well as I could. And for me, I know it's part of the Japanese culture, but I've seen that a lot in Japan, where no matter what they do it as well as they can. And I think we're lacking some of that today, where people expect too much too fast. Like, I got paid like $1,600 a month for 5 years. My first 5 years of having a job. I didn't know you could ask for a raise. I was that naive, right? And I frankly didn't care to ask because I enjoyed my job, because I was being useful and they rely on me. So for me, it didn't matter the pay. I could afford to eat. I could afford to rent. That was fine. But yeah, so I guess that's 2 advice now. But first advice is the most important. Just like relax a bit more. But do work as hard as you can, as well as you can, no matter what it is. I think that's very important.
Yeah, definitely. So if we're going to have this conversation again in 1 year from now, where do you expect things to go for the business?
For the business, we're profitable. We can help the stores a lot more. We have more events. I fix what I'm currently fixing, and the website is, you want to go to that website because it's actually cool, because we have content that you don't have anywhere else.
That's awesome.
That's wishful thinking, but that's what I wish.
Cool. So somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you,
Yeah.
you know, and just for some advice, what's the best way for somebody to get in contact with you?
Yeah, LinkedIn or email. Like, you can give me an email, it's fine. I respond to everybody, even marketing people when I should not.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate our conversation, and yeah, it was great.
Oh, thank you guys. Appreciate your time.
Thanks. All right. Thank you,
Thanks a
Antoine.
lot. Thanks
Take
a lot,
care.
man.
All right,
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.